Hello, and welcome to the 27th day of February 2022. I'm Kurt. Hey there. Welcome to the Good Life Meditation, a daily exercise to recall my life objectives and principles and to see how I'm doing applying them, particularly to yesterday, last night, and to prepare for the coming day. First, last night and yesterday. Can you see to my face? A good night's sleep. Really slept well. Actually went to bed early, so I was in bed before 9, and pretty much slept solid all the way. And the alarm went off, and then even after the alarm went off at 5 a.m., I just turned the alarm off and let myself kind of twilight there for a little bit. I could see Venus up there on the horizon with a waxing moon, with a waning moon, and got up, and here I am. It felt good. And yesterday was a very good day. Finished my chores in the morning. Took the dogs for a really nice long walk. Yumiko and I had a nice day out. We went to an estate sale. She asked me, why are all estate sales the same? It's funny, we didn't attempt to answer that question because it seemed like a rhetorical question at the time. But I did comment to her how the difference between estate sales in the United States and Japan. Well, actually, I asked her a question. I asked her if she thought that if estate sales like we have here would fly in Japan, would Japanese people want to go to someone's house where a lot of their stuff is in situ, as it was when they were living. Sometimes they collect stuff. The better ones collect things into relevant piles. The garage seems to be a well-used place to open space up, set up some tables, and to organize things. Or, meanwhile, you're just kind of picking apart someone's life, the carcass of someone's life. Picking apart the carcass of someone's life. Yeah, without the carcass being themselves. I think that's a really accurate way to describe it. I guess that's why they're all the same, Yumiko, because they're all constitute a picking apart of a carcass. It's the same that I'm sure that what if any one vulture ever pulls his head up out of the carcass of a big dead animal in the savannah and looks at the other vultures and says, why are all these carcass feasts the same? It's because they're the same. And it's just so relevant to me that, it just strikes me how fleeting and what our lives are, and what utter distraction all of this stuff is. Likewise, yesterday we also went to Yumiko and I went to a couple of thrift stores. We're kind of getting back into that because we have a big house to kind of fill with stuff. Funny that I talk about that just when I'm talking about the carcass of our lives. And we were at one. It was actually a Salvation Army in Temecula, big one. And I saw two things on the shelf, adjoining shelves, or one above the other, that kind of took me aback. One was a platter, a glass platter, which had an engraving on it of 25th anniversary. And I thought, wow, well, I guess some things are treasures and some things are not. Probably that couple to whom that was a 25th anniversary are no more. And what are you going to do? Really, your loved one, your loved ones who had been married for all those years, and maybe they made it to 30 years or 35 years, and then they're both dead. And then you're going through their stuff, and there's this 25th anniversary platter. Well, what the hell are you going to do with this? You're going to keep it for your own? No. You're going to put it at the curb for the Salvation Army to come pick up. And then they do, and what are they going to do with it? Well, they're going to put it on the shelf. Well, what are the customers going to do with it, right? Well, maybe you'll get lucky and there'll be a customer who will stroll by and they'll have an upcoming family member, maybe, not likely themselves, but a family member that's going, maybe their aunt and uncle are about to celebrate their 25th. So they think, well, this is timely. Take that and regift it, not knowing the legacy. And just below that, on the next shelf down, there was a statue with a man on a bicycle. Well, it wasn't a statue. It was like a trophy, and then it had a picture of a man. I think it was a picture of a man on a bicycle. It was really well made. And then below it, it said his name, Stan Burton, and isn't that the guy from Star? I'm trying to pick a fictitious name. The guy that made Spider-Man, Stan Burton. 100,000 miles biked. So he had clearly ridden a bicycle 100,000 miles, and someone had put together a trophy or commemorative piece of a sort to celebrate that. There you go. Well, Stan is like no more, or somehow it is no longer a part of his life. Probably he's dead. Again, what are you going to do with that, right? I mean, do you know any other Stan Burtons? The other one's dead too. So the comic book guy. So back to this. He's got the curb of the Salvation Army. No, there was a time when I was in college that I might have bought the Stan Burton thing just as a novelty, because it would have been funny in the way that young college men think that's funny to have it on the shelf. Who's this? What's this? Oh, Stan. I'd make up a story. Never thinking about the greater story, or giving a little thought. So Yumiko and I told her about how in Japan, because I actually knew a little more about this than she did, having been a part of the industry, so to speak, in Japan, in the antique biz, getting invited to be a part of an auction group very lucky that I got invited into that. It's a little bit underworld, a little bit Yakuza connection thing, where I would every the 23rd of every month go to a warehouse in Shimizu. It was actually made up of old shipping containers, 4 shipping containers put together, and the inside's all hollowed out. And then we would have an antique auction there. And I told Yumiko, I know how it worked. Grandma and Grandpa were dead. The house had no longer inhabited. The family had decided to either 1, sell the house, or 2, demolish it and just, try to get rid of the land. Because a lot of these places, there's no buyer for them. Japanese don't like old houses, and the population's decreasing, so there's no one to live there. But if you hold on to it, then you have to pay the taxes, right? If you keep a building there, I don't know what you have to do with empty land. But so there's a select group of people, and they're kind of like an underworld group, like I said, connections to the Yakuza, and some of them at least, the scary ones, scarier ones. And they would, the family decides to bulldoze the house. They would hire a contractor to come in with the bulldozers. Well, in this case, it's more like excavators with big arms on them that tear the house to pieces, and then they can do it in a day. House is gone in a day. And these companies tend to have connections with these recyclers who would come in sometimes like the day of the tearing to pieces and take everything out of the house. And like I said, I think the proper word is in situ. It was left exactly like it was left when the family departed. They had taken everything that they wanted, which is usually nothing, including the family photos. Time after time, families would just leave everything in their photos and everything. Maybe they didn't know the photos were in a drawer somewhere. And these people would come in and they would just put it all in a van as fast as they could. I remember one guy telling me how, one of these guys telling me how he was up in the attic of an old Japanese farmhouse, and the grappling thing was tearing the house to pieces at one end, and he was trying to get everything out of the attic, which the attic had been storing stuff for decades, maybe over 100 years. And he could see a giant pile of antique dolls at the end, but he couldn't get to them, and he didn't try. Well, he couldn't get to them because the grappling arm was getting there first. And didn't try because dolls aren't worth much, even though they're real beautiful expressions of art in Japan. Anyway, that's how it's done in Japan. And then they take all this stuff to the auction house. They run it through the auction, which is a really interesting process. I've described it elsewhere, where it comes along like a little slides along a conveyor belt, so to speak. Boxes, push the boxes. It pushes all the trays, not boxes, but trays, holding boxes, up to the top of the auctioneer who would auction things off. And that's how people's lives are disposed of there, in pennies on the dollar. So most of it going, or a lot of it going into the dumpster out back, because no one wants anything to do with that superstition and eyes on the new in Japan. But that's the same too. It's buzzards at a carcass feast, at a carcass. Now it's not. That's a useful part of nature, right? I mean, buzzards at a carcass. If there weren't buzzards at a carcass, there'd be a lot more carcasses around in various states. They'd be handled eventually, but it's an efficient part of the process. So, so too, when I see an estate sale, different from a garage sale, because the garage sale is typically managed or proctored, or however you want to say it, by the people who are doing the disposing, whereas the estate sale is overseen often by either a professional who is disinterested. They're just looking to get the best price to respectfully dispose of grandma and grandpa's stuff, or as yesterday was the case, an ancestor who's. It's interesting. The ones that are overseen by the ancestor, I mean, not the ancestor, the relative. Maybe it's a nephew or a son or a daughter or a niece. They're interested, and they're struck a bit by the fact that grandma's life has been reduced to pennies on the dollar and is dissolving before their eyes. And they often ask to command a greater price. It's understandable. Anyway, that was our day. And then we came home. Oh, we had a really nice lunch. Well, it was okay. We went back to California Pizza Kitchen in Temecula by the mall. It wasn't as good as last time, but nothing ever is, right? I mean, usually second times aren't quite the same. That was actually our third time there. First two times were good, so that's pretty good. Olive Garden's better, though. Well, I'm feeling like I'm getting old. Olive Garden and California Pizza Kitchen are where we go. But today we're going to try something different. Today we're going to do a little bit of exploring today. Just a little. And then Yumiko and I came home. We did some stuff on our own. I did some stuff in my room. She did some stuff downstairs. And then we got together for have dinner. We watched more of our show, The Haunting of Hill House, which was recommended to me by Michael, which I really like it, by the way. A lot of similarity between those two, Haunting of Bly Manor and Haunting of Hill House. I mean, deliberately so, including the same actors in many cases. And then I was into bed. Okay, well, let's do the good life meditation. Seven objectives. Number 1 is to be always ready to die. Number 2 is to make good and effective use of my time. 3 is to develop and maintain good and sound life principles. 4 is to cultivate good emotional reactions. Number 5 is to perform good actions. 6 is to recognize my true limits and my true opportunities. And 7 is to do just one thing at a time, and to do that thing slowly and deliberately. And in an expedient manner. Those are my 7 objectives. Now let's do my 30 principles. Number 1 is the principle of war. Always striving to disprove the things that I think are true, because I don't want to hold on to things that are not true. Number 2 is the principle of reason and the sub-principles of honesty, objectivity, and doubt, which I use to determine what's true. Number 3 is the homunculus, the concept of a little mortal who lives inside my head, between my ears, just behind my forehead. And that's what I have in place of a soul, because I don't think we have a soul. And all that entails. Next comes the Anchorhold, a reminder that my consciousness is trapped within my head and that it will not escape once I'm dead, but will wink out like the way that a candle blows out, or the way the music stops. It's just gone once I'm dead. Next comes the home of good and evil, the suggestion that right and wrong are concepts that are in our mind. They don't exist elsewhere. And then comes the principle of purpose. My purpose is to be a good husband and father, to cultivate virtue, which is the improved well-being of creatures, particularly thinking creatures, and to share the story and the message of my book, Going Alone. Next is the atomic principle. Everything is made of bits and pieces, flowing and changing, and forever transforming. So to us. Next comes the principle of nature. Everything has some particular nature, and it's good to recognize what that is so that I can abide it and expect more accurate results. Then comes the pirate ride, the suggestion that free will is an illusion, that we can make any choice that we want, but in the end, every choice that we make is exactly the choice that we would have made, given the nature of the universe. Next is maturity, and the sub-principles of wisdom and fortitude, where we are wise when we remember our successes and failures, and we use our force of character and our strength and willpower to avoid making the same mistakes and to help us cultivate greater success. Next comes temperance, and the sub-principles of suffering, simplicity, and apathy, where temperance is a tool that we use to control our consumption and to live a more moderate life. After that comes the horror show, the suggestion that life is chock full of horror, and that we get our share too, some to a greater or lesser degree, and to remember that, and to try to help. After the horror show comes the Feast of Offal, the reminder that sometimes we have, it's too much, life's too much, and we let the whole world know, and others do the same. And I'm going to make an effort to try to not do that. And when others do that, to try not to consume it and let it get me upset, but to maintain my control. Next comes distraction and agency in the great indifference. We distract ourselves from the fact that the universe appears to be a big gaping void. And we don't want to see that. The next is the best seat in the house, to try not to be anyone else or be anywhere else or be doing anything else or want to be anywhere else, or be doing anything else, but to be okay with my current circumstances. Excuse me. After distraction comes the great life, the great indifference. That's, as I mentioned, the emptiness of the universe. That's what we're distracting ourselves from. A universe devoid of God is namely what it is. We want to think that there's someone watching out for us, and some oversight, and someone who will give us a life after death. But it doesn't seem to be the case. No one has ever given any good reason or evidence that that might be the fact. And claims to faith or authority or dogma should be insufficient. Next is the best seat in the house. Oh, I already talked about that one. I think I'm mixing things up again. And then the Path of Wildness, the way upward and forward into new life. Then the risk of avoiding risk, the surface level risks of life, security, job, family, and the deep level risk of finding ourselves along the way and doing something with that discovery. And then sin and damnation, the sins of, excuse me, I'm going to sneeze. Pardon me. The sins of falsity, believing things too readily, credulity. No, falsity is being untrue. I always get that backwards. Credulity is believing things too readily. Hope, desire uncoupled from action. Faith, belief where the fact of belief is held as evidence for the belief. Figure that out. Superstition, authority, and dogma, where the belief is upheld because it appears to be backed by tradition and the weight of some institution and the voices of a lot of people. And then gossip. And the consequence of any of these sins is damnation in the here and now. Next comes complete oblivion, the reminder that when we're dead, we're gone, everything about us. Our corpse will reside for a little bit longer, depending on how much picking over there was. Hopefully there's a good amount of picking over, there ain't much left. Kind of gross when it sticks around a long time. Maybe a piranha feast would be the best. No more. Quite organic. I like that one. I need coffee. If you can't tell. Next is the great life adventure. One or more experiences in our life that kind of become our story. The season of philosophy, time to record what we learned along the way. The bullseye aim, striving for the mark but usually missing. The uphill climb, steady trudge up through life. Arena and utility, life is an arena where we use our principles as tools to do better and get by. Nothing is enough. Reminder to try to get by with less. And then the principle of fun. One I need to work on more. I tend to just remember it. I am having more fun. I really like my little office here. It's fun to be here. But I need to do it more. I need to be more like Molly. He seems to know how to have fun. How to enjoy life. My wife does too. In her way. Emily does. I gotta catch up. Anyway. So the plan for the day is that it's just like yesterday. Finish this, read the Bible. I think I'm on Psalm, I think I'm Psalm 18. No, not Psalm, Proverbs 18. And then the house is all clean. Then I'm going to make a cup of coffee, and then I'll sit here and read. Maybe look for some portraits to put in my book. I've got a lot of frames over here. I'm building a author's wall. Maybe I'll do that. Just enjoy the day. And then when my wife gets up, we'll have breakfast together. Then we're going to take the dogs to the dog park, not this dog park, but another dog park. And then she and I are going to go do some antiquing, maybe in Temecula. And then we're going to have a nice lunch together, and we'll find some place. I'll find some place. I think she likes it when I do that. And I like making her happy. All right, that's it. Have a good day. Be safe, but not too safe.